Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Meade, and joining me as always, where he comes from, underslotting means something way different. My brother, Mike.
That's right. Sounds like an option I was given at my last colonoscopy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was the cleanest van I've ever been in my life.
Cleanest,
okay?
At least. Most professional guy with a goatee he's ever seen in his life.
Sergey was the most professional.
Yeah.
Just
gentle, kind.
Tender, really.
Put on some Enya. It was wonderful, really. He's going to go back for another next week, and so can't get enough of it there. Thank you for joining us here on Royals Weekly as we try and laugh away the tears from what was a pretty sad week of Royals baseball, but at least we have hopeful things to talk about. So we're gonna review that week just a little bit, the not so great week the Royals had on the field, but we're gonna focus our spotlight segment on the MLB Draft that just wrapped up this weekend. The Royals added a bunch of new talent to the organization. We love talking about draft stuff, so we're going to devote a large portion of our show today to that draft. So if you're interested, if you've come here for draft coverage, you're in luck. If you'd like a little more draft coverage, though, make sure you're looking at the Royals Weekly Substack, where I did some stuff on some of the day one picks, wrote a post about that today. We'll probably cover it again on the midweek episode. royalsweekly.substack.com. $5 a month gets you a bunch of ad-free content, extra stuff, 2 extra episodes every week. It's wonderful. Make sure you're subscribing to that if you'd like more content on the draft and everything else Royals. We are going to finish this week by talking a little bit about the games for the series after the All-Star break, which I believe is against the Padres. So you'll get a chance to hear some of that preview for this week too. Make sure you're also doing all the reviewing and rating you can possibly do for us. Give us a thumbs up, give us 5 stars, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if you can. Leave us a review under a YouTube comment or something like that. We like hearing from fans. We like hearing those positive things you have to say, even if they're negative but really funny. We also like those ones. Like last week, we shared just one back and forth with each other that was like negative but really funny. And so we like doing that too. So make sure you're like throwing out whatever sort of review you have of us. We love hearing those sorts of things. We love reading your stuff right here on the show. We always start our review of last week with roster news. There wasn't a ton of it this week, but we should cover it as there was one at least semi-significant development on the roster front. The Royals reinstated Vinny Pasquantino from the 10-day injured list. He's been out with a hamate bone fracture, but he's now come back to the Royals. As a corresponding move, they optioned Cameron Meisner back down to AAA. So you see a switch there, Pasquantino from Meisner. Mike, what are your thoughts on getting Vinny Pasquantino back into the lineup? We saw him play today and maybe yesterday. How are your thoughts on seeing that big first baseman back out there?
It doesn't really affect the team all that much. That's the crazy thing. Like for the Royals, it means almost nothing. For Vinny Pasquantino, it means a ton. Like Vinny Pasquantino is the kind of offensive performer that if you're a team that needs a little bit more in your lineup, maybe another guy that can be a run producer, but you're not counting on him all the time. At least that's what he's shown to me. You're not counting on Vinny Pasquantino to be a carrier of your offense, a mainstay in your offense, or he hasn't shown that this year. Then Vinny Pasquantino might be able to get you over a hump, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to carry an offense, and this team's out of it anyway. What is extremely important is for that Vinny Pasquantino, for his career, produces for the rest of this year. Because the Royals have not extended him, and he's got 1 year of control left. So far, how many years of solid production does Vinny Pasquantino have? You can maybe say 1. That is it. If you have 1 solid year of major league production in your first 6, and you are an unathletic, first base DH only kind of guy, the market is not going to be stout for you. And so he needs to show that, first off, he can stay healthy. And 2, that when he is healthy, he can produce, because he'll have next year with the Royals, and there's no other signs that he's going to have a future in Major League Baseball if he can't start producing consistently.
Yeah, that's important for him, especially.
Now, the one good thing is super charismatic. So he'll have a future in Major League Baseball commentary. But yes, if he wants to stay in the game longer, he needs to hit.
He does need to hit. That's what's weird. Like, part of me is like, well, I want him to start hitting so that the Royals can actually trade him. But I actually don't know that he has a huge market here at the deadline because of the things that you've mentioned. He doesn't have this sustained track record of offensive production. You can say that he has done much better in the second half of seasons than he's done in the first half. So maybe they could sell a team on like, hey, you're making a playoff run. this guy's going to hit really well for you in the second half. His track record shows that he typically does. But with the injuries, with the inconsistency of offensive production and that sort of thing, from first base DH, that's your big offensive producers. You typically don't have teams. I mean, there are teams out there who struggle to produce offensively at first base, but that's an offense first profile. You have to be able to really put up big numbers offensively. Even in his good years, he hasn't done anything that you would consider otherworldly offensively. I mean, what's his best season? 112 maybe as a weighted runs created plus,
like
or something like that.
115.
That's a positive, and some team will take that, but they're not paying big money for that. They're not like shelling out. They're not seeing you as like some big mover in terms of an offseason ad or a deadline ad or anything like that. And so I think he really needs to show that he can put up some numbers. I think that the Royals would love to maybe move him either at the deadline or in the offseason, because he's at this point kind of redundant. Like, we've seen Jack Caglione go to first base. That's where his long-term future is. And, what are they going to do with Vinny Pasquantino? Him and Jack can rotate DH, first base, that sort of thing. But ultimately, they're not going to sign him to an extension if he's not putting up big numbers like Jack Caglione looks like he could. And, that's where he needs to be. So they're going to have to make a decision with Vinny Pasquantino. I'm not 100% sure that it gets made at the deadline because there's very little time left. I've actually thought of some teams that I'm like, I think he would be pretty good there. I think it helps him to think about where he wants to go in free agency and where the Royals might trade him, because think about him in a place like Arizona, a place where his lack of big time raw power can sort of be covered up by the hitting environment. Like, or say New York or something like that. They have Ben Rice, so they would never take him. Yeah. Stuff like that, where maybe the ballpark is small, maybe the ball flies out of there or something like that. Something where he can really take advantage of the fact that he knows how to pull the ball, he knows how to hit it in the air. He's just getting a little bit more distance from it in those places. That's something the Royals could look to do anyway. Good to see him back on the field. Good to see him sort of regaining value, hopefully at the plate. Other than that, it was really just bullpen shuffling for the roster moves that got done. Eli Morgan was brought up. Jose Cuas was sent down. I don't know that registers in any sort of way with anyone, honestly. And so, yeah, that happened though. On the field last week, the Royals went 2-5, which brings their overall record to, Mike, do you know? 38-59. Beat you to it. It was particularly awful week in some ways, because after finishing that Phillies series on Monday with a series win, they won that Phillies game, won the Phillies series. The Royals won one game versus the Mets in the opening game and then lost all the rest of their games this week. So it was like 2 wins to start the week, 5 straight losses. They're going into the All-Star break with 5 straight losses, including a series sweep at the hands of the Baltimore Orioles. Mike, it looked pretty sad out there this week. What are your thoughts on what you saw on the field?
So interesting to start a week with your only 2 wins of the week, scoring over 30 runs in those 2 games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They had 15 runs in that series finale against the Phillies. They had 16 runs to open that Mets series. And after that, well, it's weird. That's how they started the week. Those are their first 2 games of the week. The last 2 games of the week were almost the exact opposite of that. Just like flat, uninspired baseball. Like, just not fun to watch. Almost got no hit. Like, just not good stuff in that at the end of that Baltimore series. And this is a team that needs an all-star break, and they need, wholesale sweeping changes to not, you can chalk up injuries for the starting rotation and stuff like that, but the offense has not been consistent or good at all this year either. And so people will talk about, oh man, this rotation's not good. Lugo's losing to Father Time, and Wacha even struggled this week in his only start. But the offense has been the issue for 2 years, and it still is. This is year 3.
I don't know. I think there's a debate to be had about which of those things is the bigger issue. I mean, you're right. Like, it is inconsistent offense, to be clear, because they'll go off and pop off with like a 15, 16 run game, and then they'll go 3 or 4 games scoring like 2 runs or 1 run or something like that. It's an inconsistency for sure. But that same inconsistency can be applied to the starting rotation, and of course can be applied to the bullpen. I mean, the bullpen, again, had a horrific week, and we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But it's really hard to pinpoint and say that one of those is the issue at this point. They're really all the issue at this point. I don't know that I would point to the offense as the particular problem at this moment, honestly, just because at least there they have some players you see who look like they're on the ascent, whereas the rotation, what pitcher could you point to and say that guy is on the ascent? We see a bunch of them who look like they're on the descent, or may have be gone, and they're nowhere to be seen anymore. Harder to say that about either the rotation or the bullpen, really, honestly.
Yeah, but if you look in the last 3 years, one of those units you can say has been the steadiest of those units on the team. It's the starting rotation. Right.
But all those guys are 3 years older or more surgeries in at this point. I mean, we're like,
I get, and I understand that completely, but then you're also talking about when we come back from next year or this offseason coming up, you're getting things back for that. You're getting Ryan Bergert back. You're getting Ben Caderna back. You have the sparkling jewels of your system are all on the pitching side. And so I'm not as worried necessarily about the starting rotation or the bullpen. One, because a bullpen I feel like can be turned around very quickly. Starting rotation, I feel like there's a lot more depth and just a lot more talent. We have consistently seen this offense underperform going on 3, 4, 5, 6, many, many years now.
Yeah, that's true. In terms of the track record, they certainly have the track record of underperforming. I just think the rotation and the bullpen are bigger issues at this point. But anyway, some people had some strong weeks. Let's talk about them. In a week where you score 31 runs in 2 games, some guys are going to rack up some hits in those games. And so, Mike, I think you and I both picked 2 guys who really made their bones in the first 2 games of the week and then kind of maybe fell off a little bit. Who was your strong performer for last week?
Yeah, I picked Lane Thomas because he actually, even though he fell off a little bit, he did have he had a strong game, some strong games in that Baltimore series too. So he was
just today. I think he was 0 for 8 coming into today. And
did he? He had 3 hits today, I think. 3 hits. I think he had 3 hits today. But yeah, Lane Thomas was my guy. 10 for 27 with 3 runs, 4 doubles, 2 home runs, 7 RBI, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts. I almost went with my boy Isaac Collins because he had a pretty good week too. Including in this Baltimore series. But I went with Lane Thomas because I wanted to talk about, he's a guy that we're probably going to move at the deadline, I would imagine. And
it would be absolute malpractice if they did not.
And now it does look like maybe there's going to be, you can get something back for a Lane Thomas. Everybody knows Lane Thomas can hit left-handed pitching. He can play you center field if you need him to. I don't know if a playoff run team's going to want to play him there every single day, but Lane Thomas is good enough in center field to play when needed. He's got value on the trade market. Go out and get yourself a reliever who can help you in the future, or a lottery ticket, or whatever you can get out of Lane Thomas. It ain't going to be much still, but it's going to be something.
Yeah, there aren't going to be a ton of rental bats, like legit rental bats out there, and I think he'll be one of them. I think teams will look at him like, okay, we're not looking to get guys for multiple years because we have a work stoppage coming and all this sort of stuff. Let's get the guy who's like, we just have to pay him very little for the rest of this year. And he's putting up like a 110 weighted runs created plus right now, can play multiple positions in the outfield. They'll take that. That's going to be a really attractive. That's their best trade chip at this point because Chris Bubich is on the shelf. Another guy who, honestly, if the Royals wanted to shop him, they could probably get some value back for him at this point. That's Nick Lofton. Had a great week last week too. 9 for 23. 3 doubles, 1 home run, 4 RBI, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. Love the fact that he has learned to maximize his offensive value for this team. I think that's wonderful. I think because of that, they have either a viable bench piece for a long time, or they have a guy who they can maybe get some value from in the trade market. If I were another team, I would be looking at him if I needed like some sort of super utility help, if I needed even an everyday third baseman, because mine is like, if yours is like garbage, like you're getting like 65 weighted runs created plus out of third base, I'd give the Royals a call, and I didn't want to spend that much money. I'd give the Royals a call, or that much in trade capital. Sure. Why not? I think Lofton could play third base every single day, put up a, 100 weighted runs created plus for some team and make their lineup a little bit better. That's a possibility, or just be a super utility bat off the bench and be valuable that way. Mike, plenty of guys did not shine in last week's 2-5 week, as you might expect. Who was your week performer for last week?
Well, I strategically pick a lot of my weak performers and strong performers and things like that just to rub stuff in your face. Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of my stuff is vindictively picked. And so I believe it was on the midweek episode on Wednesday.
Around me, really.
And how I can make him look bad. That's the whole thing. And so I believe it was the midweek episode last week where you claimed that Carter Jensen was a superstar.
No,
and so
I
was
said
like,
he was going to be a superstar.
You said he's a superstar, and I said, no, I will go back and find the clip, young man. Okay,
Find it.
You said he
you know
was
you
a
won't actually do
superstar,
that.
and I said, what? No, he's not a superstar yet. Now, do I think Carter Jensen can be a superstar? I do think he can do that, but it will be about consistency, as it is for any major league player, as it is for Jack Caglione as well. But Carter Jensen this week was not showing the consistency that we want to see from a guy we're going to heavily rely on to produce offense for this team. He went 2 for 22, 0 runs scored. Okay. 1 double, 0 home runs. So he had 1 extra base hit of the 2 he had all week. 2 RBI, 4 walks, and 12 strikeouts. Got to see more from Carter Jensen. It's got to be more consistent. He's going on runs where he's just killing it and then falling off a cliff for weeks at a time. That's part of maturation in Major League Baseball. But when he matures out of that, then he may become a superstar, Mark. He is not currently one.
Yeah, probably not currently one, but he will be one. And I'm very happy to have him on the team. Love you, Carter. Love the underslot moves to get you too, because that's where that conversation originated. You.
Yes, it did.
My week performer for last week, one that will surprise absolutely no one, and that is Matt Strahm. Matt Strahm pitched in 4 games this week. Feels like it, doesn't it? Feels like he pitched in a lot of those games. He went 2 2/3 innings in those 4 games, gave up 8 hits, 8 earned runs, 1 home run, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Matt Strahm has got to be one of the worst bullpen additions I've ever seen in my life. We're talking Will Smith level stuff here. I mean, his ERA is, I think, over 7 at this point. Just absolutely unplayable, untradeable because of how terrible he's been. I don't think that they could get anything for him. I think come August 4th, he just should probably just not be on the team anymore, honestly. Like, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter because, you know,
somebody got to pitch those innings.
Season's over. Somebody's got to throw innings. But like, all he's doing for the Royals post August 4th, August 3rd is the trade deadline. All he's doing for the Royals post August 4th is just filling innings. You know, that's all he's doing because his contract's up after this year, and then bye Matt Strahm. Like, I'm happy to no longer see you out there throwing innings for the Royals because it's not working, frankly. Mike, it was a rough week. It's been a weird week, but we also had some hope with the draft. What'd you choose to go with for a theme with all that chaos?
I went back to a classic here from the legend David Bowie here from maybe one of his biggest hits, Changes, I think is just the name of the song. Or
you should definitely sing Changes. It in a Bowie voice. Yeah.
No, that's not going to happen. But I'm going to go with it's from the chorus of that song. It's turn and face the strange, changes, just going to have to be a different man. Okay. And I went with that because yes, the draft happened this week, and I thought the things that happened in that draft were very strange. Okay. And we'll talk about it here in a minute, but lots of gambles in this draft. Lots of like, hope it works out. We like the kid. We like the athleticism. We like this. We like the traits, but big question mark for a lot of them. It's different question marks. For some of them, it's the same one. And so that was a little bit weird for me. Like, you're going with some strange stuff here. So you're going to have to face that strangeness, but also you have to be a different man. This has to be a different team. Like, some of these players have to be different than what they are currently to make this any sort of a competitive team. Right. We love to say, well, Jack had that huge June. Yeah. A huge June is great, but 1 month does not a season make Jack Caglione. We need more consistency. Same with Carter Jensen. Same with Vinny Pasquantino. Same with Salvador Perez. You can say it about every single player they have in there. You have got to provide more consistency. And that's the weird thing. You can talk about Isaac Collins, but after that first 2 weeks, he's been the same player all year. Like, that's the one thing, like Isaac Collins has played pretty much every week, and he's giving you about the same. It's not what you want altogether. You want a little bit more from him, but at least you're getting something out of the guy. It's not like, oh, I'm a superstar 1 week, and then, I don't hear from me for 2 more weeks. And so there's got to be more consistency. It's got to be a completely different team than what it is to be a competitor.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that probably means quite a few different players, honestly. A different man, many different men, honestly. And so we'll see if that happens in 2027, 2028, that sort of thing. I went with a a theme that emerged as I sort of started to consider that the Royals looked really emotionally down in that Orioles series. Mike mentioned it was flat. It was very flat in my mind. Watching that, I was like,
well, let's take this back to your Matt Strahm pick for a weak performer, because that was a great one. One that I definitely considered was Strahm as well. He's the reason they were down in that series. Right. They had a chance to win game 1 until Matt Strahm stepped into that thing.
Stepped in there, dumped it out, and just
gave up a 2-run home run. And
yeah. So that doesn't help, right? Like losing games with the bullpen is real demoralizing. They look demoralized, honestly. And that got me thinking of the film Friday and the great John Witherspoon, who is plays the father in that
hilarious human being.
Hilarious human being. John Witherspoon is, and his
was
line
R.I.P.
Is he dead?
Yeah, he died several years ago now.
That's so sad. Now I'm sad. But he has a line in it where he just says, "There ain't nothing wrong with you laying down there like a broke dick dog." So I'm thinking about the Royals. I look down at them like playing out there like a bunch of broke dick dogs, like just that's what it looks like sometimes when they're all, sad out there. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Word spreading about the hottest realtor in the Phoenix area. This kid's got know-how. He's got drive. He's got the thoughtful care to help you secure your dream retirement home. And let's face it, Phoenix is a dream. Sun, golf, baseball.
I need a sun-soaked berm, a baseball game, and to be vigorously underslotted. Stat.
Eric Oxer ranked in the top 3% of agents in all of Arizona for the first quarter of 2026. Why? Because for Eric, it's not about him. It's about you. He's going to spend a day and night grinding to find you the house of your dreams and get you the best price for it.
I want those savings. I'm eyeing a collector's My Little Pony set on eBay. Mint condition.
Mint condition, everybody. Mm-hmm. Find Eric Oxer of West USA Realty online at ericoxer.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. Be wise. If you're ready to make the move, let Eric make the experience all about you. To be frank, the most important thing happening in the Royals universe this week wasn't the games on the field. They're already out of contention. Who cares what they do on the field? It was the MLB Draft, where the Royals had a chance to add serious talent to the organization. They had 3 picks in the top 56, including the 6th overall and the 7th most bonus pool money. That means they had a lot of opportunity to add talent, and we're going to spend our spotlight segment discussing the picks that they made. Make sure to subscribe to the Royals Weekly Substack if you'd like more draft analysis, as I've already written one post about it, and we're probably going to talk about it during the midweek episode this week as well. But for now, Mike, let's start at the beginning. With the 6th overall pick in the MLB Draft, the Royals selected Zion Rose, an outfielder from Louisville. He was ranked lower than that on all public boards, and many believe this was an underslot move. We won't know for sure until the money comes out, and signing day is not till the end of July, like the signing deadline. But most people assume that this was an underslot move, meaning they're going to pay him less money than his slot value so that they can spread the money out among their other picks. How do you feel about the Royals' decision to take Rose and for probably underslot money?
Well, it's interesting. First, I don't like it. I've already explained on here. I think it was on a weekly episode that I do not particularly like underslotting when you're in the position that the Royals were in. Also, let me explain this. When you look overall at the guys the Royals took, especially in that top 10, they took guys not a little ranked a little bit lower on public boards than where they were picked. They were a lot lower on public boards than where they were picked. Now, public boards are not everything.
They're not. Okay?
They are hundreds of picks lower. Hundreds.
No, I mean, they're not. I mean, that public boards aren't everything. Like, there's
they certainly aren't. No,
they're lower than they actually are.
For sure. And I'm completely I completely understand that. But when you choose to do that, you're choosing to say the thing that our evaluators see is way different than what these public evaluators see. Okay. The data that we have makes this picture way different. Okay. Now you say, okay, they want to do it to underslot. Cool. If that's the case, then you would think inside that top 10, you would have some sort of like really high level, high upside, high school guys. I don't see a lot of those. I see one. I don't see a lot. Okay. Now, specifically the Zion. Now that's my overall for what I've saw from the draft. Specifically the Zion Rose pick. You and I both talked about Zion Rose as a guy that we liked at 30. Okay. At 30, we like Zion Rose. He's a guy that has a really high level bat. You know, he probably swings a little too much. He may be a little too aggressive, but high exit velocities, good from the right side, has power to all fields, can be like a run producer kind of guy. Athletic for his body type, especially. He's kind of thick at 6 feet tall, but he can run a little bit. But does not have a great arm. Has to play pretty much left field only as an outfielder. Okay. I like him, but Jacob Lombard, a kid who has a chance to be a legit superstar in Major League Baseball, was there at 6. Why you would choose to do that is beyond me. Okay. I understand. And you know what, actually, you know what a lot of this says to me when you look at it overall? It looks like the Royals are saying, we believe in the Bobby Witt Jr. window, and we want to be able to maximize the Bobby Witt. Yes, it does. You can say no, but that's what all these picks are saying, Mark. That's what they're all saying.
No. Here's what the Zion Rose pick is actually saying. It says that they believed in the swing and miss issues for Lombard, right? It's not like Lombard went 7. He didn't go until 14th. Why? Because he had a bunch of swing and miss concerns, and that dropped him down in the draft. Like that's the reason it took place. Now look at Zion Rose. He is actually the opposite of that. He has a big time hit tool. His end zone contact rate very high. A guy who puts the bat on the ball and doesn't strike out very much at all or swing and miss very much at all. The Royals must think.
Did Jack Caglione, by the way.
Similar to Jack Caglione. Yeah, that is similar to Jack Caglione, although he does chase far less than Jack Caglione did, even in college, right? And so there are differences there for a lot of them, right? Obviously, Zion Rose doesn't have what is probably 80 grade raw power from Jack Caglione, right? And so Rose represents actually not so much this notion of like, oh, you know, doesn't have the potential to be a superstar or whatever. He represents that they're interested in getting that type of hitter, a hitter who has big contact rates, who they think, okay, if we change this about him, maybe we make him a little more patient. Maybe we teach him to hunt pitches that he can do damage on. He lifts and pulls the ball a little bit more, and you have a middle of the order bat. You have a hitting superstar in Zion Rose who you're going to pay 15, 16, 17 slot money instead of 6 slot money, which they would have had to pay Jacob Lombard, right? And so their thinking is, we'll get a guy who could end up being a better hitter than Jacob Lombard, but we can also then spend that money later in the draft. That's their thinking. I have no problem with the underslot move, and I do want to acknowledge other teams had those swing and miss concerns for Lombard. That's why he didn't get taken until 14th, right? Like, yes, they could be missing. I liked Lombard too, but if they don't, and then at that point, you've pretty much run out of all the guys who I thought were big upside guys I wanted them to take, because Jackson Flora was gone, right? I didn't want them to take Eric Booth Jr. Lombard was the last one where I was like, okay, maybe he's got that level of high end potential, but if they didn't think so, then underslotting to me makes a whole lot of sense. I think Rose is actually a top 10 talent. I think there are some public evaluators who agree and who have like written articles defending that pick. Mike, you seem to like you want to interject with a thought.
I just have a question for you, because I like Rose too. You and like I mentioned before, I like Rose. I think he has a chance to be. I texted you this, that when they took him, he seems to me like he profiles as a really heavy run producer, like a guy who might slide in as a perfect 4 hitter for you, and has a chance to have 120 RBI kind of seasons, that kind of guy. And I threw out the Albert Bell comp because he kind of looks like Albert Bell too in the stature and things like that. My question to you is, if they're going to save this money, where are the picks that look like you have to overpay?
This is the mistake people are making. They don't see the Rabe pick as an overslot move, but it is. He's got 2 years of college eligibility left. He redshirted his freshman year, and we'll talk. This is a good transition, right? Like, let's transition into their second overall pick. At the 30th overall pick, the Royals selected Taylor Rabe, a right-handed pitcher out of Ole Miss. He's got a big fastball and surprisingly good command. Guys who have his type of stuff in college typically don't have his high level of command, but he does an insane level of command. Mike, what are your thoughts on getting Rabe now? Some people are confused because they're like, wait, I thought they were going to overslot at 30 and take a high school guy. They overslotted at 30, I think, by taking Rabe because he's basically a draft eligible sophomore because he redshirted his first year because he got Tommy John in the offseason between his high school and college career, right? So he redshirted his first year. He's only pitched 2 years, but he's got 2 more years of eligibility. That is why they will probably have to overpay Rabe to not go back to Ole Miss, if that makes sense.
Okay. So I understand that. Thank you for sharing that with me. I did not realize that was kind of the setup here. And I really like Rabe. I like the player. I think that is such an interesting combination of, and there's some insane stat. If you look at one of his, I can't remember which one it was I was looking at.
Oh, it's the strikeout to walk ratio. It's this insane stat, right?
Well, that's the deal. It was, and I have pulled up right here. It is absolutely crazy. 1 unintentional walk in 79 batters faced in 25. 1 unintentional walk. That is just absolutely crazy.
His strikeout to walk ratio, even with the unintentional or the intentional walks, was 7 in the SEC. Yeah. 7 times more strikeouts than walks. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's and part of the reason the strikeouts are so high is because of that extremely effective fastball, which I love. I really like the fastball. I think the cutter is really good. They call it a cutter, but it's got tons of break to it. It's like a low 90s pitch for him. So you could call it maybe a slider. It's whatever you call it. It's a really good pitch for him. And I like him. I think that's great. But when I think about, okay, well, there is injury risk here. And that's why I mentioned, like, when I was doing my theme, like every single one of these picks seems to be a big gamble. With Rose, you took a guy 20 spots higher than most places had him ranked. With Rabe and a lot of these other guys, you're talking about serious injury concern. Or they've already had Tommy John, or one of the guys we're going to take didn't play as a high school senior. We're going to talk about him in a minute. It's like, there's a lot of risk and gamble in a lot of these picks that they took, a lot of upside as well. But we know how that works out. If those things don't work out, you're talking about a guy who never makes Major League Baseball. And so there were other guys there that I liked. Logan Reedeman, we talked about him, both of us liking him out of UCLA, right-handed pitcher. Taj Marchant was the high school kid, I think out of South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, that I liked in that spot if you were going to do kind of an overslot thing to keep him from going to college. But I will say a lot of really great things to like about the Rabe, just the profile. The guy's got just a seriously swing and miss fastball, along with a really, really good second pitch already, and top level command, maybe the best command in the draft. That's something to really dream on.
Yeah, and that command is really going to help his stuff play up, I think. I think his fastball is really, really good, but it looks even better because he can spot it right at the top of the zone to entice pitchers to swing, or to hitters to swing, but can't catch up to it, can't, match the rise that it's going to have and things like that. He reminds me a little bit of Steven Zobak in his like athleticism, the way he looks, like his body type and the way he pitches. Like they have different arsenals a little bit, in that Zobak has like a really good slider that he leans on a lot and doesn't have as effective a fastball maybe as Rabe does. I'm interested to see if the Royals can help him improve on the breaking stuff that he currently throws. We know that that's one of their strengths as a pitching development group, to develop sliders, breaking pitches, and things like that. Give this guy a breaking pitch that he can complement with the cutter and with the fastball, and maybe help him make that changeup average. And you have a front end starter in my mind, given the command is 60 grade, given the fastball looks like it's going to play. Obviously, the elbow stuff is a concern. And that's your notion that some of these picks are a gamble is one that I actually agree with. Yes, I think there's a ton of upside in all these day one picks, but there is some significant gamble in a lot of the pitchers that they took, especially Rabe, especially Yell, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. They have upside. There's tremendous upside, but this guy's already 1 TJ deep. That's not nothing, right? Like, you got to keep that in mind.
The other thing to think about too, with those guys specifically and several of the other pitchers that they're in, the Royals went super heavy on pitching in this draft. In the top 10, they only took 3 position players. The rest were pitchers. And if you go after that, it's a lot of pitching too. A lot of those guys were relievers at one point in college, at least at some point in college.
At some point, yeah.
For a lot of them, the majority of their college career, they were relievers. Mm-hmm. And so a little bit weird on that front too. Whereas a lot of times you'll see guys, even if they end up being relievers, who get drafted that high are starters in college.
Yeah, a lot of them were like, and some of them it was like a situation where they were relievers, but programs start guys in the bullpen and they work their way into the starting rotation. Like some of those guys, that's what Rabe did basically. Like because they were coming back from TJ, they were like, we're going to put you in the bullpen because you can't throw more than 30 innings this year anyway. So, a lot of times that's the case. After that, with pick 56, the Royals did go prep player as an overslot option. They drafted high school pitcher Jack Slidham out of, I believe, Illinois. And he's a big, tall lefty. Mike, he's a two-sport athlete. Or no, sorry, he's a righty, I think. Big, tall righty, 6'5", I think. Also a quarterback, two-sport athlete. Mike, what are your thoughts? I think there's a lot of projection left in him, and people are like praising the Royals, or the Royals' thinking is that there's a lot of projection when he starts focusing only on pitching and only on baseball. He'll have a chance to meet some of that projection. What are your thoughts on Jack Slidham?
Yeah, and I think this might have been on even the broadcast of the draft. They talked about how he had been a big time football player as well, won like the highest class of state championship for his football team as a quarterback, and had a lot of he was like a helium guy. Like in the last 2 months, he's just flew up draft boards, and that's built off the idea that his velocity has increased quite a bit. And according to the people I listened to, the numbers on that pitch, the metrics on that pitch alone are very strong. Okay, good. Like to hear that. Love a good fastball from a kid like that. The thing that's a little confusing to me, though, I don't know. He strikes me as kind of one of those guys we've gotten from colder weather states that is like and you mentioned this with Rabe. Rabe's a big dude. Like this kind of broke the mold here for the Royals. The Royals were going with like smaller athletic pitchers, and they went and drafted giants in this draft. I mean, they
got a bunch of big guys.
Yeah, had to be 6'5" to ride this ride. Okay. In the Royals 2026 draft for pitchers anyway. And so Slayton's another big guy. He's really giving me Blake Walters vibes, which is kind of scaring me a little bit. Now, Walters wasn't like the two-sport athlete quarterback kind of guy.
He played basketball.
Oh yeah, I forgot he's a basketball guy. Wasn't he? Yeah. But that's what's kind of worrying me here, in case you're wondering. Blake Walters, who's now out of the Royals top 20 prospects list. But the potential is definitely through the roof. I mean, if the fastball is as good as advertised, the numbers are as good. Now they've got a lot of developing to do. This kid has to develop many secondary pitches. He's got to really, they say he's got feel for a changeup. You're going to have to show that. This is a kid I highly expect to be in Arizona for a while before he starts moving into long season ball. But, a lot of potential there. We'll see if they can develop it.
Yeah, plenty of ceiling on Jack Slidham. But to me, he's like more raw than maybe I'd like. They're banking almost entirely on the projection here, and that's okay to some degree, but boy, you really got to get it right, because it's going to be tough. It's going to be a long road. He's going to have to like focusing on baseball and focusing on pitching. Those will help him. Like that will help him grow, but he's got a lot to learn. Like there's just a lot to learn when you're so new to the idea of like pitching professionally, pitching full time. Now they probably like the makeup, high school quarterback, winner, state champion, that sort of thing. Like they probably like the makeup. They probably like, obviously like a fastball that looks like it's getting into the mid 90s and, has a good shape to it, but it takes a lot to develop those secondary pitches. It takes a lot to sort of refine your command and do all these various things that come with being a professional pitcher. He's got a long way to go, and there's a lot of potholes along the way, if that makes sense. I wondered about like why take such a guy with so much projection needed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because in my notes it says right there isn't much polish to this guy. Like, no, he's an arm that throws a fastball, and you like the athleticism on the mound. The other thing I'll ask you: did you see where he was committed for college?
No. Oh yeah, it was
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, yeah, which I thought was weird.
Which it is a little bit weird. It makes me wonder if like he committed, and that's when he started adding velocity to that fastball and started rising up draft boards and things like that. That wouldn't surprise me, because you don't see a lot of the guys that that one, go that high, but have that level of buzz committed to places like Cincinnati for baseball.
Right. And you don't I haven't read up too many of his reports and stuff like that. I've watched video of him and stuff, but you don't read a bunch of stuff about him being like a showcase circuit guy. So there's a chance that his name just wasn't out there as much as it is for some other top prospects, or guys didn't get to see him after that big boost in velocity and things like that, which is fine. But at the same time, it means he may not be as polished because he hasn't had all these experiences, With their next pick, the Royals selected another college pitcher, left-hander Max Yell from West Virginia. Yell is hold on, let me pull this up here real quick.
22-year-old lefty.
Yes, 22-year-old lefty, 6'6", 235 pounds, big fella. Senior sign, Max Yell will be. And so we'll see if that was a move to maybe save a little bit of money. Mike, do you have any quick thoughts about Max Yell?
Well, I don't think he's a senior guy. I think he's a redshirt junior, if I'm not mistaken.
No, according to this, he's a senior.
Is he really?
According to this, but he could be wrong.
Oh yeah, he's a senior. You're right. Thoughts on Max Yell? Yeah, he had Tommy John surgery in 2025. He was a reliever before that. Then he comes back. He ends up becoming like Big 12 pitcher of the year this past year. He was like
the Friday night starter.
Yeah, he was, and took him to the College World Series essentially. I mean, they had a couple good guys, I think, in that rotation. But the question for me on Max Yell is, can the fastball be an asset for him? I think there's questions about that among evaluators. Some guys think, yes, he can turn it into a good pitch for him. And others say, I don't know about that. The leading pitch for him is a slider that's going to be kind of his calling card. But if the fastball can turn into an asset for him, I think he's a rotation guy. If it isn't, you're looking at a reliever, and that this guy can also do that and could be a very good reliever as well. So I think it was kind of a safety thing for them. You sign a guy, or you draft a guy who, the ceiling is mid-rotation to back-end rotation guy. The floor is still a useful piece in the bullpen, maybe saves you a little bit of money because he is a senior.
Yeah, I think that's an easy floor as a reliever. I think left-handers are going to just struggle mightily with Max Yell.
Yeah, he's got that side army.
He's got a real body sidearm motion and I think he starts from the extreme first base side of the rubber. So he's way out there on lefties, and they're going to have a hell of a time against him. Plus with that big slider, that makes it even tougher. If they can make his secondary stuff better, which the Royals are probably the best at when it comes to the things they do with pitching development, great. Maybe he's a back end starter, but he started sort of the first run and they continued in on day 2 of them trying to draft guys who look very much like they could at least be very viable relief prospects. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, but I'm interested in the notion that this is a guy who, if he doesn't start a day in their organization, fine. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with taking a senior sign, even in the 4th or 5th round, I think 4th, who it looks like he's going to be a reliever for you from day one. Totally fine with that, as long as he has the stuff to be that kind of reliever day one. Mike, after that, with the last pick they make on day 1, the Royals select a high school outfielder named Dominic Batista. He and Jack Slidham were actually listed among the 11 sleeper picks from Baseball America, actually. So Batista, I think it's Batista. Good athlete. He's a guy who is about 6'1", got hurt before his senior season, and so he didn't play a ton. But question is, will he add enough strength? Everybody thinks he's going to be a great center fielder. What are your thoughts on Dominic Batista as a 5th round pick for the Royals?
Yeah, he's super interesting. And it's another one of those gamble things, right?
Upside,
every one of these
upside.
top 5-10 picks are gambles with upside, right? But I think it's probably Batista. But
Batista
only played 13 games of his high school senior season because of a broken hamate bone. I like the look of the guy. I've seen some video on him. Looks like a really athletic left-hander. Moves really well. Can run. Has probably plus raw power. I would say maybe 55 grade raw power. Don't know that he taps into it as much as you'd want him to as a high schooler. But you're going to work with him on that. But yeah, real questions there. This is a guy that was not ranked in Major League Baseball's top 250 prospects. The Royals took him in the fifth round, was not ranked in the top 250 players. So a little interesting because, and largely that is because people did not get to see him.
Right. That's what you'll notice about all these dudes who weren't ranked. Something about them changed late in the process, right? Like that's what ended up happening, right? Like, why don't some guys get ranked yet they still get taken really high? Because late in the process, their value goes up, right? And that's either because they see increased velocity and they don't update these like rankings and stuff all the way to the last minute. They don't have time to go see these guys all the time, really late in the process. And so, they're skeptical of those changes too, which they should be. But like, that's why guys might rise up a Royals board, but haven't risen up MLB Pipeline's board or Baseball America's board or whoever's, right? Like, and so just because somebody isn't on one of those lists doesn't mean that they don't have talent or upside, right? It just means that they didn't make it on that list previously. And maybe public evaluators haven't gotten around to seeing them again.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that. And I like the idea of doing this. It's just, you're going on very little information. And so we will kind of see how he works out, but he's a young guy. So we'll see what he does. He'll probably be in Arizona for a while. And then, but yeah, I do like the profile.
Me too. In fact, it's sort of just like
good arm too.
Good arm, good defender in center field. I think that gives him a good floor. Honestly, I don't think people could draw a ton of distinctions for me between Dominic Batista and Sean Gamble, right? Who they got in the first, like what's the big difference, right? Like they're both like speed profile guys. They're both center field prospects. Maybe Gamble has a little more raw pop. I'm not 100% sure of that. I really like Dominic Batista's swing. I think he's got a really short, elegant swing. I think it's similar to Bryce Harper's, though obviously he doesn't have the raw power of a Bryce Harper. I like him as a prospect. He's a diamond in the rough for me. I'm really glad for this pick. And I think it makes a ton of sense to make it obviously very raw, like a lot of their other prep draftees. It's going to take some time, but I think makes sense if you're going to save a little money on pick 1, which they did with Zion Rose. Go get those high upside prep guys, get some high upside, draft eligible sophomores basically. And I think they did that on day 1. Mike, let's talk really briefly about the guys from day 2. I want you to pick one guy from day 2 who you really liked.
Yeah, I went with Dylan Vignew, the 22-year-old right-handed pitcher out of the University of Georgia. Started up his career, I believe, at Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. But Vignew is an interesting dude because he was a pretty high-profile guy in high school out of Massachusetts, but he was inconsistent. Okay, and that's kind of been his thing throughout his college career as well. You love the fastball. It's a plus fastball already. You really love the slider. Good slider already. The command is garbage. Okay, and so he puts too many guys on. But he can get plenty of swing and miss. And so that's why I think Vignew probably profiles more as a reliever for the Royals. I think he was a starter. He was their Friday starter, I think, at Georgia this year. So he's got some pedigree, but I think you're probably looking at a reliever in Major League Baseball. And I think the Royals probably took him to be a reliever. They may try him as a starter, but I think ultimately he ends up in the bullpen. And I think when he does, though, you're talking about a guy who could be, has the ceiling of a back end guy. And that's why I like him in that. I can't remember when they got him exactly. It was 7th round. And so, a guy that I feel like you can really, maybe start to do some stuff with, maybe even add another pitch to his arsenal, calm down his mechanics a little bit or something to improve some of that command. But Dylan Vignew is a guy I think we should all be looking for because he's a college pitcher who comes out with swing and miss ability already and 2+ pitches already that you got in the 7th round. That seems valuable to me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He was one I gave serious consideration to, but I chose a guy who sort of represents the same thing in a lot of ways. I wanted to talk a lot about this, I guess you could say day 2, right from the start. They started taking these college pitchers who, some might get some look as starters, but look like they're going to be relievers in Major League Baseball. And I'm like, you and me have been talking for like a month and a half about like, I'm like banging the drum, like get more relief prospects into this system, get guys who could actually be bullpen depth for the Royals, and it looks like that's what they've done at the first half of day 2. I'm talking about Justin LeGurnic. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. 21-year-old left-hander out of Clemson. Another one of those tall, long lefties in the same mold as Max Yell. He's 6'4", 210. A guy with some firepower on the left side, mid 90s fastball from a 6'4" lefty. That's some impressive heat that can be very effective in the major leagues. Like to see that in the 6th round. That's a pretty good profile to get. I think intentionally drafting these relievers like LeGurnic and like Vigu makes a lot of sense to me, and so I want to see that sort of thing for them. He also has a breaking ball, a very good slider in the college class, mid 80s breaker. So you can see him being like a fastball slider lefty who just, again, destroys left-handed pitching out of their bullpen. I think that's a really good thing to take.
Yeah.
This
guy is very much kind of a mirror of Vigu. He's kind of Vigu from the other side. But did you notice this just in the pictures that they took? They took a lot of guys who at least had one kind of exceptional pitch. They didn't there were not many Drew Beams in this class.
No.
This was like hey, we are looking for a guy who's already has a phenomenal pitch. For Vigu and LeGurnic, it was the LeGurnic, it was the slider. For Rabe, it's the fastball. It's like they all kind of have one thing that they do really well, and then I guess they're hoping they can build on that. And all giants, because LeGurnic is 6'4" as well. They drafted, I think, a 6'8" guy out of there. I mean, they're all just huge human beings.
Yeah. Other very interesting picks from day 2, Camden Johnson, a guy who's looks like he could be a shortstop out of Oklahoma, real speed profile, 70 grade runner, great base stealer, good value there in the 9th. And then with the 19th pick, they took a guy who was pretty highly rated, 138 on MLB Pipeline's board, Hudson Devon. Might have some issues signing him. We'll see if they have the money to get him, but a very quality pitching prospect. Another giant at 6'5", 200 pounds from Indiana, another cold weather state. Hopefully that means that the Royals will be able to get some value out of him, and some of this high upside will hit. Mike, do you feel good about the draft? What's your grade for it overall?
Ooh, that's a tough one because it's so risk reward. I'm still pissed about the first pick. So let's go with, I'm going to go with a B, solid, just right in the middle.
Okay. I went with, I think, a B plus for day 1 when I rated it. I'm going to stick with B plus after day 2. Honestly, I think there's some value there in day 2. I like the emphasis on getting guys who look like they could be professional relievers. And I do think there's some upside in guys like Johnson and Devon. So yeah, not bad.
Real quick, I know we're going long on this segment, but I want to ask one more question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the big traumatic split between the number of pitchers they took and the number of position players, their hitters they took? Is that just a function of what was valuable in this draft class? Or because you would think in the organization, we probably need a little bit more hitting talent, but they went heavy on the pitchers.
I don't know. I think you got to look at it like this. They went with a lot of pitchers because pitching is a skill of attrition. And a lot of these guys, like because of injury or ineffectiveness or whatever, will just fall away. Like pitching is a numbers game. You got to take 10 to get 2 viable ones. That's just one of the elements of pitching. But it is important that they devoted 2 of their top 5 picks to hitters, including their number 1 overall pick. And remember that the higher someone's taken, the more likely they are to make it to Major League Baseball. Right. And so it's one of those things that's like, yeah, they took a bunch of pitchers, but the guy they have who is most likely to contribute to a major league team is a hitter. Right. Like, and so, it's one of those kind of things. It doesn't really concern me at all. In fact, I think I'm glad they did it this way because pitching is the most important thing, and they need to get in a bunch of guys who can provide. They're a little barren when it comes to relief pitching as well. They always need more pitching, and you can always trade pitching too. And so, yeah, I have no problem with taking a lot more pitchers than hitters. Mike, what household chores do you refuse to do yourself?
Window cleaning, pressure washing, and most importantly, gutter cleaning.
And why is that?
Well, I could spend 2 hours hoofing it up and down a ladder, or I could spend 2 hours watching sports and drinking kerosene. That's a no-brainer, baby.
It's a no-brainer after the kerosene. If you're wise like Mike, reach out to the professionals at Window Wolf for all your window cleaning, gutter cleaning, and pressure washing needs. Window Wolf is a locally operated small business with all the professional know-how to keep your feet on the ground and your house or business shining bright. I've known the owner of Window Wolf for years, and I can tell you there's no one more reliable for high-quality service. Plus, Window Wolf is revolutionizing home maintenance with their new instant price calculator, which gives you a free quote without a home visit or entering a bunch of your personal information. We're huge fans of an instant price calculator at Royals Weekly. We love them. Window Wolf is making the process easy and the price affordable. And for a limited time only, you can get 50% off when you book using their instant price calculator. Just visit windowwolf.com. That's windowwolf.com and use the code Royals50. That's Royals50, no spaces, when using that instant price calculator and save big bucks on quality service.
50% off, and they won't tear down half the gutters in a freak accident, which I will 100% do if I do it
and
myself.
Have done multiple times. Be smart. Let the pack handle your pains with Window Wolf. For the most part, the Royals won't be playing this week. It's the All-Star break, so Bobby Witt Jr. and Michael Wacha will be playing a little bit, maybe. Jack will do the home run derby, but for the most part, it's time for the rest of the Royals to rest. But they will kick off a homestand to end this week with a 3-game series against the San Diego Padres. There aren't any probables out for that series yet because it's so far away, but we have some info about the Padres as a team. So, Mike, please tell us about the team out in San Diego. I'll give you the record, though, because I have it pulled up right here. The Padres are 48-48, exactly 500. That puts them third in the NL West behind the Dodgers, 12.5 games behind the Dodgers.
Okay. Well, their offense has been subpar or bad, as some like to say. Just a 90 weighted runs created plus for their offense this year. That's 29th in Major League Baseball. That's next to last, if you don't know. That's bad. They do have solid contributions from Ty France with a 123 weighted runs created plus, Samad Taylor with a 134.
Royals legend.
Limited. Royals legend Samad Taylor has been limited. And he's hurt now. What?
He's on the IL right now.
Yeah, he's on the IL right now. Their stars have been, just league average so far this season, and those stars include Fernando Tatis Jr.,
Manny Machado.
Who's the other guy? Manny Machado is the other guy I was thinking of. So,
Xavier Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah, Xander Bogaerts, yeah. Talks of possibly trading at the deadline for the Padres as well. There's been a lot of chatter around Mason Miller, although it looks like they're not going to deal him. Pitching staff's been average, 4.26 ERA, 16th in Major League Baseball there. Michael King's having a pretty good year at 3.41. Every other starter, though, has an ERA over 4.5. The bullpen is good, led by Mason Miller. And we'll see if any of those guys get moved or if they try to stick it out and fight in a tough NL West.
Yeah, back from 12.5 down is tough, but yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All in Physical Therapy, who don't just offer the best in physical therapy in the KC Metro. They also offer the best in summer speed and conditioning programs for youth athletes who want to make big gains.
They'll show up to fall camp looking like prime Bo Jackson because Bo knows.
Bo knows summer speed and conditioning. If your child is interested in getting the most out of their athleticism, check out videos of All In's summer speed and conditioning programs on their Instagram feed. And of course, All In always offers the best in physical therapy for post-surgery or athletic injury patients. They offer a personalized one-on-one experience to meet your specific therapy goals.
I want to resolve feelings about my childhood, but that's a different specific therapy goal. We're still working on that one.
Yeah, you're your biggest project. Learn more about how All In Physical Therapy can get your body back on track at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com. Or give these very nice people a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. All In Physical Therapy, your recovery goals are their number one priority. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just a Bit Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. I'm not just some baseball jock to be mined for his baseball information. I'm a person. I'm a fully fledged human being. Okay. And so is Mike most of the time. Mike, what did you have going on last week?
Well, we got a lot going on in Mike's house, but I wanted to do and I do this almost annually. I talk about people's homes. and the reason I'm doing it this week is because a little celebration for myself here. My wife and I are about to make our final payment to own our home. And let's just recognize that we were very lucky and fortunate to buy when we did and have the help of people who love us and all that sort of stuff. So this isn't a pulling myself up by my bootstraps. Like I pulled on them and 20 other people pulled on them and we got up. Okay. But I do want to kind of give my annual reminder that the value of home ownership is not the equity that you build in your home. Okay. The value of home ownership is having a place to live. That's the main value of home. Mark calls it use value. That is the main value of home ownership. Now, this is not to knock on people who want to buy homes. I own a home. Mark owns his home. Our good friend, Eric Oxter of West USA Realty, helps people find affordable homes and the right home for them all the time. And he does a great job doing it. Home ownership is a great thing, but I hope people can really understand why people would choose not to own a home as well. Okay.
Definitely. Nothing makes me understand that more than owning one.
Yeah. Nothing makes you understand the value of not owning a home like owning one.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so I was out yesterday morning spraying wild violet, which is a weed you do not want to get in your yard, by the way. And I hate spraying chemicals in my yard, but I have to because it's the only way to get rid of this thing, and it spreads like wildfire. But anyway, I digress. That costs me money. Everything you do at a home costs you money, but that's why I always tell people they say, oh, and I still have people tell me this all the time because I personal finance is one of my passions. They'll say buying a home is a great investment. It is not. Don't let that lie be something that drives you to buying homes. It is not a waste of money to rent anything. It is not a good investment to buy a home. Don't ever think of your home that way because you will be sorely disappointed once you do the actual math. And once you realize, especially once you have a child, we've had my son in this house now for 4 years, and we had it before we had him, and now we've had it after. And it's he sees this place as his fortress, as his extremely safe place where he has all his fun and makes a bunch of his, not all of his fun, but makes a lot of his memories and stuff like that. And I mentioned to him the other day, I think I made a joke about, when we sell the house and move, and he almost started crying. Because that to him, that would be devastating. And so the real value of your home is the ability to live in it, the memories you make in it, that sort of stuff. It's a pain in the ass to upkeep them. It's a pain in the ass to pay those gigantic bills when your foundation has water coming in, or when your hot water heater goes out, or your whatever thing has to be done. But I'm proud that we were able to do that to pay off this house. But I want people to remember that the reason that I'm proud of it isn't that now I own it, what I consider an asset. It is that I have a safe place for my child to be raised, for my wife and I to live, and that I've got, more than one bathroom. That was a big deal. Mark and I grew up in houses, our mom worked her butt off, but having 2 bathrooms in a house is a big deal for Mark and I from the situation we grew up in. And so just owning a home, great, but don't think of it as anything more than just a good place for you and your family to live.
Wonderful place. Love Mike's house too. It's not just a great place for your family, Mike. It's a great place for me. That's what's most important. Okay. So
that's right.
So yeah,
Mark has spent many a night on the soiled futon in my basement, which is right next to me.
Yeah. Many a night. Going to be spending more soon. Yeah. So I'm talking about a thing this week that I'm talking about because something happened. So I've been encouraging my partner to watch the show West Wing for a very long time. I love this show. If you've never seen it, it's I consider it a dramedy, but I think most people just call it a drama, but it has a ton of humor in it. It was written and created by Aaron Sorkin, who's written a bunch of stuff and a bunch of movies, a bunch of all this, right? But it's a great show. Was made back in the late 90s is when it started. And it represents just an entirely different era of being. And it definitely represents a different era of politics because it's a show about politics and the presidency and all this sort of stuff. But because of it, I started to remind myself, and I'm talking to other people all the time too, about how like when I talk to young people, I try and always sort of make it clear, like what we're living in now was not always the case. And that like things were way better back in the 90s. I always just put it pretty plainly like that. I was alive during the 90s and stuff was just way better then. Like, and I don't just mean like, oh, you know, like we had better technology. We didn't have better technology, right? Like, but everyone was happier, right? Like everyone was happier. Everyone had more hope for the future than we currently have. Like, and there's like quantifiable data on this as well, but like, just generally speaking, let's say you're old enough to have been around for the 90s and like cognizant of what was going on. Wasn't it better? Right? Like, didn't it seem a lot better to you? Like, it seemed so much better to me. And it's not just because I was a kid then or like a teenager, I guess, but it's also because like all the adults around me seemed like they were happier then too, right? Like now people are like, I can't afford, rent. I can't buy groceries. Everything sucks, blah, 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 and yeah, politics are super dark and stuff like that. But interestingly about watching West Wing, they're way lighter on there. Even like political disagreements, like the most dramatic it ever gets on there is nowhere near as dramatic as it gets like in the world
like
now.
A Tuesday.
Like on a day-to-day basis here, right? Like they save the super dramatic moments in that show for like the end of a season
finale. It's got to be a
season finale.
Yeah.
Somebody will get like, there'll be like an assassination attempt or the president's daughter will get kidnapped or something, right? But here, that shit happens like every single day in 2026. Like, what are we talking about? Like every day. It's just a nice reminder watching stuff from the 90s that the 90s was so much better than it is now. And hopefully we get back to a day like that. But I'm not real hopeful because how could I be? I live in 2026. Like
you want to hear something?
So,
I watch DuckTales on a regular basis. So
wonderful show, wonderful show, fantastic program, especially the new ones. That's all we have for you this week. That's our TV commentary. That's we'll be back again with some baseball stuff next week. If you are interested in more content, royalsweekly.substack.com, subscribe to that, and we'll talk more about the draft for our midweek episode. But until we see you next time, be good to each other.
And go Royals.